The Colorado Rockies are a team with a ton of farm talent, specifically outfielders. What do they do with all of these guys? I hopped on with Paul Holden of Locked On Rockies to talk about it. Check it out.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Lindsey Crosby, Locked On MLB Prospects, Paul Holden, Locked On Rockies, here to talk this farm system. And Paul, something that I've noticed about this farm system is you guys have a ton of outfielders, man.
They love outfielders. I mean, and that's what's so crazy. And now we're sitting here as Rockies fans. They need to add a power bat in the outfield. So is that through free agency? Do you package some of these outfielders and figure it out? Plus, who's going to play where? I will say it's more interesting. The DH coming, really, please no Charlie Blackman in right field. I love Charlie Blackman, but if we have all these outfielders and we need to see who's going to let Charlie just swing it, and we can have someone else that's not going to be a negative asset on defense. So I don't know. They really love outfielders. Outfielders and it was arms for a while. It was get every single arm I feel possible, and we're going to figure out who can pitch at this environment.
Yeah, and I think that's the big kind of thing here is the offensive environment that you're in compared to everybody else. You've got special concerns there, but kind of looking at this top 10, and let's just start at the very top. I mean, you guys have tons of talent, but outfielder Zac Veen. So he's a guy to me. I mean, obviously high school player in 2020, one of the few picks in 2020 because it's 5-round draft. So somebody that ninth overall pick, got a big signing bonus to skip going to Florida, and started off kind of slow, right? First 120 at-bats in low A Fresno, didn't have a homer, but then you look at his end-of-the-year stats, 301, 15 homers, 36 stolen bases, and just under 400 at-bats. And so he's a guy to me that, based on what we've seen so far, I feel pretty comfortable he's going to project out to be an everyday big leaguer. The question is, how far does he go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really excited, and also winning, I believe, the minor league player of the year for the Rockies. At least the Rockies announced something like that. He was their top prospect, quote unquote, for that they voted for. He's really exciting. It's just hard, when I wonder, it's like, when is he going to come, and how much is that going to factor in? But what I like about and what I liked about seeing and watching him play, it is that ability that I struggled first and then to kind of come alive. I love seeing that, especially in the first year and especially throughout the season. I'm okay with slow starts if they lead to what Veen was able to do. And that's a great, great sign to see someone who comes out of high school, starts the major league grind process of a, even it's a low ball, but still a professional season, and to be able to have that success and really show out in the big moments. He had a great showing at the Futures game, if I recall correctly, as well. So Zac Veen is someone that I'm really excited about. But as you mentioned in the notes there, he wants to use that, maybe he needs to use more of the entire field. He's got to work on that swing a little bit more. I'm not looking for him to be the thing. I'm looking for Zac Veen to be a great defender who can hit a ton of doubles and play center field. That would be an ideal situation if Zac Veen was to develop, because I think to go to our first outfield conversation, and one of these super fans who really cranked the numbers for me opened my eyes to this. I want the Rockies to lead the league in doubles. I want the Rockies to be a team that hits a ton all over the yard, and that's going to play super well at Coors Field. Todd Helton, a prime example. Why was Todd Helton always so good? It's because he hit a ton of doubles, and that if someone's on second, that's an RBI. That's a run in the first, second, third inning. So if Veen can hit the ball all over the yard, play solid defense, I think he could be something special. He's easily the one in the system that I think is kind of giving you that, all right, we are watching closely what Zac Veen is going to do.
Yeah, and he's a number one prospect for a reason, right? I mean, we're talking about the floor on him is everyday outfielder, big league kind of guy. If he hits, his power needs to develop a little bit more, and you have to keep in mind, I mean, he's 6'5", 200, so he's a good sized kid, but he's still a kid. He was born in December 2001. So you look at some of that. You touched on how he struggled and got a little better. He is very good at hitting in the zone, like hitting against spin, against velo. against location. He's very good at that, and he can hit both lefties and righties. Doesn't have really severe platoon splits. What I do want to see from him is he's got a lot of stuff in that swing. It's a really long swing, and I think there's some mechanical tweaks he can make, and that's kind of natural that you'll make as you come up, just to kind of shorten his path into the zone and then lengthen the amount of time that he's in the zone. But I mean, the contacts he's already making are good. And then defensively, he's got good reads, he's got good range, he's got good routes. Those are the big things you look for an outfielder. I feel like his arm is good. His arm is good enough to stick in center field. And so for me, this is now just you need progressively harder competition year over year. I actually think he's a guy, because you're going to lose so many AAA guys off the 40-man, rather than him starting off at high A, depending on how he looks in training, they may start him off at double A this year.
Right.
And again, that's just one of those, how does he look in spring training? But from everything that we've heard, and obviously they're in spring training right now, I just haven't seen updates from camp yet. I think he's going to be, next couple of years, up there, hopefully leading the league in doubles in Coors Field.
and if he's playing ball at double A next year, especially at the beginning post spring training, that is that is something to bring a little bit of positive and life into a farm system that it needs a pulse. It needs a flash. It needs someone for Rockies fans to sit here and be excited about coming up and seeing. Because I think what's interesting, and maybe this might be a non sequitur or anything, but I'm with the amount of time the Rockies have given Raimel Tapia to play in terms of his production, not a stellar defender, and can hit the ball, but hits the ball 62 or 64% of the time on the ground. I'm curious what that's going to mean for a prospect like Zac Veen. If he can get the same amount of at-bats, maybe he struggles a little bit. And then when he gets to that everyday role, we can see him not ground out to shortstop every time. I love Raimel Tapia, and I think he provides a unique a unique flair, but he's someone that I would imagine the Rockies would try to move to bring that outfielder to fill in the time before Zac Veen is ready. That's kind of what I see. And if Veen is better than Tapia, that's already a step up, and that means the Rockies have someone that's an everyday starter that's going to be able to be more effective. Because when Raimel's hot, he's a great contributor to the team, but when he's cold, he's ice cold.
Yeah, and you mentioned a minute ago about Todd Helton, and he's actually a guy that I want to reference for a second. I'm glad that he's in camp right now, because your number 2 prospect, Michael Toglia, I think I'm saying that right, but 2019 first rounder out of UCLA, and he's a guy that I really think having Helton in camp is going to help him especially. He is your CJ Cron replacement in the next, I'd say probably sometime in the next 2 years. He was in Double A last year, obviously had that moment in the Futures game, hit a home run there at Coors Field, kind of give you a preview of the future. But I mean, big, powerful switch hitting kind of guy. And a lot of the work for him is he's still really pull heavy, kind of the same issue that Zac Veen has. And so I think Helton's going to be a guy that can kind of show him, straighten his swing out a bit, straighten his offensive game out, and show him, hey, this is how you go and hit doubles in Coors Field. This is what you have to do offensively. And so, I feel good about in the next 2 years seeing him at the big league level for the Rockies.
This is what it's so nice that that first base is finally working out for the Rockies. Getting CJ Cron was a move they should have made in 18 and 17. They should have been looking for a CJ Cron type of player this entire time for first base while they were figuring out the draft and development of the next person. So I love Cron being back for 2 years to buy time for Toglia. And if I'm Toglia and I'm sitting there saying, the Rockies just brought in the guy. I mean, there's out of 3 names that you could pick out of the hat to be Mr. Rocky. I'm pretty sure Todd Helton is still at the top of that list. And to have the Rockies come in and bring him in, and beat reporters and stuff were saying Todd Helton is specifically here at this camp right now to work with Michael Toglia. His job. I mean, I'm sure he will do other things
for you, Michael.
But it's. To have that, if Toglia is not sitting there and just trying to absorb as much, because when I watch first base play, and I know I'm the homer, Todd Helton is the pinnacle of what I want from my first baseman. A first baseman that is great defensively, who is someone that will make your infield better on the defense side. And, even with it's first base defensive, blah, blah, blah. Todd Helton was an elite defensive first baseman. I stand by that. And his ability to put the ball in play. If I was a Rockies minor leaguer, there would be very few Rockies I would be more excited about to listen to than someone who said, I want to play 17 years here and commit my entire career to being a Colorado Rocky, especially at first base. And I mean, that's been a position that has been dying since Todd Helton. I mean, to go from Todd Helton to, I don't really know who was the interim in between someone there, but to Ian Desmond, to Daniel Murphy, and then to sit here and be like, oh, so we're just waiting for the CJ Cron guy the whole time. This is really all we needed for first base. I mean,
could have just done this.
Yeah, we could have just done this when the rest of the infield was incredible. We actually just needed to put a normal first baseman at first base. Sorry, I'm going off my usual tangents, but
you're good.
you know, this is something that these Veen and Toglia, that it does kind of make your heart thump a little bit to know that there are two players that are, when the Rockies are looking at and saying that these are our guys, and the re-sign of Cron gives a perfect little bit more time for Toglia to develop, for the Rockies still to get production from that position. I think that's a great move, and I think Toglia's got to sit there being confident and know that not only is he getting help from Todd Helton, but then, when he will cross paths with Cron and be able to talk about, and I think that's going to be something great too, as someone who's come in and said, this is a new stage of my career. I found some great success and could be the Rockies' offensive leader for it was last year, it could be this year, and could be on the next year too. I mean, two really, really great mentors for Toglia to have, which and has shown in the big moment though. So if we get a new Todd Helton, that's the ceiling. But if we get CJ Cron level production from Toglia, I'm happy with that. I am very happy if your draft pick turns into my CJ Cron. I think you're happy at this, the Rockies 2021 version of CJ Cron, I should say. You'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, especially for a guy who missed out on a season in 2020. So right. The stuff about Toglia, there's a thing that I love and a thing I want him to kind of improve on, and I kind of made a lot of those notes in our show rundown. But for Toglia, I love his ability, and you talk about first base defense, and that's something a lot of folks say you don't need an elite defense at first base. I think the one thing that you do need to find, and Toglia has it, is the ability to pick and scoop balls out of the dirt. That's something that will improve your infield defense. And it's something a guy like Freddie Freeman, he's considered to be one of the best first basemen in baseball, not only because of his offense, but because I say Braves first baseman, he's technically not, but his ability to go down and get a ball in the dirt. So Toglia's got that skill. I love that. What I do want to see him work on, I mean, he's pull heavy, but he is sometimes not aggressive enough. And it seems odd to say that about a guy, who hit 22 home runs and 400 at-bats, but he sometimes leaves hittable pitches there. And he's too selective at times. And I think that in Colorado, there's an opportunity to take a mistake pitch and put it in the seats. And I think that's something that Todd Helton, who was really good at hitting hittable pitches and letting not hittable pitches go, I think that's something that Helton's going to show him and really going to give him some advice on and some tips on and teach him that. But talking about like guys who have to still learn a little bit and get some more of that high level experience, catcher Drew Romo. So he's the number 3 overall prospect right now for the team, and 2020 out of high school. I don't usually love prep catchers. He's one of the exceptions. I feel like he's got really good defense. And he was considered to have kind of a questionable bat before last year. And then he goes to Fresno, bats .314. Not a ton of power production, which is something that we'll get there, but 23 steals from a catcher.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, that doesn't happen a ton. And so he's like, to me, okay, he's got really good defense. He's working on game calling. You just need some more time for that, obviously. He's a switch hitter. And I'm almost at the point now where I think he should probably drop the switch hitting and bat left-handed. There's a 130-point difference between when he bats lefty, 351, and when he bats righty, 218. And a catcher has enough stuff to learn already because of the cerebral aspect of game calling, defense, things like that. Maybe just drop the switch hitting, stick to batting lefty. But either way, good bat speed, good strike zone discipline. He has all the tools. He does need to grow into some of that power a bit, and I don't know exactly how much he's going to do that. But either way, I really think that 3 years from now, he's going to be a Gold Glove caliber defender there in Colorado for the team.
Yeah, and you know, I'm with you on that. On don't further complicate the already complicated game of baseball when you're trying to break through and make it to the next level by doing a switch hitting thing, unless you feel as the player like you really feel like you're that confident it is that big of an X factor for your play. It's something that I don't necessarily think, again, 130 points difference in the game of baseball. That is a
That's a lot.
major shift in terms of numbers there. So if you need to work on your game calling, you need to help your power, and you need to, and you're already facing a huge shift in the difference between the two swings. I love the novelty of a switch hitting Gold Gloves base stealing catcher. But I'm also okay if you're a contact hitting, base stealing Gold Glove catcher that hits from the left side exclusively. I'm also okay with that instead of, getting too complicated, because you're going into the game and you think that you're going to go up against this pitcher, but what if you're playing the Rays and it's an opener? I know it's interleague play, but what if you're facing an opener and then they go to the next pitcher and you're facing all these arms and you got to go back and forth in the game? How you need to get your rhythm. You need to get your baseball. I very much a game of rhythm, and I think by having so many, I got to call the game. I got to be ready to play on defense, and then I got to be a contributor on offense on top of, pitch calling, pitch blocking, all that stuff. Don't further complicate yourself when it's already so hard to make it there. And again, when we're looking for a comparison, I think these two prospects that we just talked about finally have someone of equivalence that is a good sign for the Rockies. The Rockies were desperate for any type of offense from the catching position, and Elias Diaz wasn't doing that until midway through the season this year. If Elias Diaz is going to be consistent and can kind of again show these guys what it's like to be productive at this position and that has struggled in Coors, that's going to be huge. But I will take not as much power with good contact hitting and elite defense from the Rockies catcher versus, waiting for half a season for Elias Diaz to finally come alive and start hitting things out of the park.
It is easy enough to score runs in Denver that my priority is defense from that catcher. I want him to not let balls go. And he's got a little bit of work to do on his blocking still. And that's just something where you see him as a bigger guy, 6'1", a little bit more mass back there to move around, but he'll get there. That's something that you pick up with experience. And part of that too goes to knowing your pitching staff and knowing what's coming, knowing what balls they put in the dirt. So you see a young guy who went from high school straight into the minors, he doesn't have the knowledge of the staff. So blocking something that develops a little bit later for guys like that. And in just a minute, I do want to go over some pitchers and some outfielders I'm really excited about. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends with Mission Possible. Paul, are you ready to discover your purpose and leave an impact wherever you go?
I'm always ready to discover my purpose. I couldn't be more ready, honestly.
Well, Mission Possible, written and read by New York Times bestselling author and athlete and former baseball player Tim Tebow, encourages you to find your inspiration, pursue your purpose, and create a life for yourself that counts. So ignite a new spark in your life through this new inspirational listen. Mission Possible by Tim Tebow is available everywhere audiobooks are sold.
Like my Tebow, am I getting it right?
That is exactly what it looks like. I was so glad we had the Tim Tebow audiobook for the Denver Guys episode. I was like, this will work. He will get this. You will appreciate this.
I will appreciate that. It was fun having Tim Tebow, but I will take Peyton Manning over Tim Tebow every single time.
I imagine you would. But talking about guys that lefties that I would rather have. Number 4 prospect in the system, left-hand pitcher Ryan Rolison. So I got a chance to watch him when he was at Mississippi, drafted in 2018, and really went into some tough pitching locations. I mean, Grand Junction's not an easy place to pitch. Lancaster's not an easy place to pitch. And then he's had some health issues since then. So he's probably a guy who would have already been contributing at the major league level, if not for, I think he had to have his appendix taken out last year.
Yes,
and he
that's
broke
right.
a bone in his
remember
hand.
that.
Yeah, did a lot of stuff, and he tried to catch up for time. He was in the Dominican Winter League and stuff. I think the only thing that's going to slow him down from contributing this year right away is the fact that he's on the 40-man roster. So he can't go to spring training with the rest of the minor leaguers until there's a CBA. But he's one of those lefties that is my kind of guy. He's got a fastball, low 90s, but really the fastball exists to set up the breaking stuff. He's got a 12-6 curve. I love a good lefty curveball. This is a plus pitch. He can vary how hard it dies. He can vary how deep in the box it gets on the batter. So, something that's good there. His slider looks a lot like the curveball. There's a lot of deception between the two. It's almost like a tighter version of the curveball, still a plus pitch as well. And then he's working on a changeup. And so you give his good control, you give him these 2+ breaking pitches, a fastball that's good enough. He needs to get a little better command of it, especially arm side. But I think he's a guy that as soon as he can get into camp, get some minor league polishing done, he can be in your rotation as soon as probably the second half of this season, with the caveat of assuming there is a season this year.
Right. Well, and it's a prime year for young Rockies arms that are close to major league ready. But the Rockies rotation and especially bullpen, the bullpen is going to be young. I don't think I would like the Rockies to go out and get a veteran, one more veteran bullpen arm. But I'm kind of excited to see if Daniel Bard is shifting into a reliever role, which I think is a great move for the Rockies. And the Rockies did see a couple of people step up into being potential closers for the team. But the Rockies need to see what some of these young arms are going to do, especially with the way your rotation is set up right now. You're going to go Herman, you're going to go Senza, you're going to go Gomber, you're going to go Freeland, and that leaves your 5. Please, we don't need to see any more Chichi Gonzalez. I'm not trying to be mean to Chichi Gonzalez, but Chichi Gonzalez is not an everyday MLB starter. I'd rather Rolison come up in this. If Chichi needs to get us to June, let's get to June. But let's get Rolison up. Let's get all these other guys up here to start throwing major league innings and honestly throw against the best. Who, is it really going to be that big of a deal if the Rockies are out of it by June to throw Rolison against the Dodgers on a Sunday in LA? I think that's some pretty darn good. That's the environment. That's the experience. If the Rockies aren't sitting here during the lockout saying, re-signing a starting pitcher I guess re-signing wasn't a priority because they let Jon Gray walk. But if signing a free agent starting pitcher to be our 5th arm isn't the plan, then I really do hope the plan is let's rotate. Let's see what happens. And that's fine if that 5th spot is kind of gonna, it's Rolison for June. Then we go, just go down the line and see who else is MLB ready, and at least get him some experience. Now it's a different story if the Rockies somehow pull out a miraculous part and they're competitive. You're going to want to make a splash and see if you can have someone that'll be a little bit more consistent and an arm ready to go. But if you're still sitting in 4th place in the division, let's throw these arms out here. Just kind of like I liked the approach, and it didn't really work. But last year with the bullpen, we had a ton of young arms go in there, but we got to see them. People got to throw against great batters that aren't at the low A level. And while it is a challenge, it is kind of nice for Rockies to play good teams when it is like, hey, you want to see what it's like to play in the big leagues? Go throw against Mookie Betts and the rest of the Dodgers today and see what happens. I'm not trying to say throw them to the fire, but that's something where it is like, if you want to be the best, here's the best. Go after him. And so if Rolison I think, I agree. He's going to suffer from the lockout. He is on that long list of players that got finally sitting there super pumped to be excited about being invited to spring training. And then all of this happens and all this stuff. There are going to be a lot of young players that need more time to heat up and get going. Just like you'll see some majors. I mean, there's a prime example with the Rockies. Like, don't be surprised if German Marquez is cold, just because he usually starts a little cold anyway and then heats up throughout the season. I mean, I think the pitchers are going to suffer the most, I think, from this lockout. They'll have the most time to throw, but you need those innings. So, yeah. But yeah, very, very excited. And this is the year to really see what's up with some of your young arms. You have this extra spot in your rotation. If you're not going to re-sign Jon Gray to be that role, what is your plan for the 5th spot in your rotation?
And you've got so many arms at AAA that have options. You can rotate guys in, give guys 2 starts, give guys 3 starts. And if they struggle more than you're comfortable with, you bring the next one, let him try. You can rotate back and forth. And obviously you're going to have injuries. You're going to have depth. Depth always works itself out. And that's kind of one of those things you look at some of the prospects, like after those top 4 guys, I've got a group of like 3 or 4 outfielders all together. There's Benny Montgomery, Brenton Doyle, Ryan. Is it Ryan Vilade? Vilade?
That one's I've heard Vialde. I don't know. I feel bad.
Vialde.
I feel
Vialde.
bad that I don't know all the names, but
Yeah, like just like a bunch of outfielders there, and it's
and
one of those.
That's on top of already Raimel Tapia, Sam Hilliard, Jonathan Daza, all these people they're not. The outfield is so crowded. It's just a matter of who out of that do you really want to go? Benny Montgomery, I will say, I'm very excited. I know he's a far off, but what I like just seeing from the early stuff from Benny, and this is off the field stuff, so superfluous maybe, but he gives me Charlie Blackman vibes. Someone who enjoys the game of baseball and isn't afraid to play his unique, wonky kind of style. I know people have issues with the swing, and there's a lot, but again, guy right out of high school doing all this stuff. There's still plenty of time to develop, but I'm all in if Benny can be one of those guys that develops a wonky swing and play. If his brand of ball is to be successful and it's a little wonky and a little weird, let's get the Nikola Jokic of baseball out here, playing his style specifically. I'm all for swing adjustments and taking advantage of it, but I'm also of the case of if you got a wacky swing that works, you use that wacky. Don't change what's hopefully going to be one of Benny's biggest strength, and that's hitting the ball.
Yeah, I mean, he's got plenty of bat speed. He's got good enough hand-eye coordination. And then his speed is, I mean, plus is absurd. He's probably the fastest person in this farm system. And so he just needs to get on base. I mean, you don't need him to hit home runs. And he 47 at-bats last year, didn't have a ton of at-bats, but didn't hit any home runs in that small sample size. But again, like all you have to do is get on base with him. And yes, like you said, funky swing, kind of like Hunter Pence, but if he can get that hit tool to the point of where he can get on base, I mean, he's your everyday center fielder because he's got plus arm strength. He's got athleticism. He does need to work a little bit on his reads and routes as far as crack at the bat. Where's he going? How's he getting to that ball? But he has the speed and the physical traits to make up for a small mistake, things like that. It's just where does the hitting get to? And I think that's ultimately going to decide what happens with Benny Montgomery. So he's probably the guy in this group with the most risk, but he's probably the guy with the highest ceiling simply because of his other physical tools. And folks who listen to my show a lot know that I talk about for position players, I want them to have some sort of elite level tool. Him is obviously his speed is elite level. And so with him, it's just how much can you figure out a swing that will work? You don't have to fix it. You just have to make it look good. So,
yeah. And on top of that too, it's critical that he develops good routes and good ball sense in the field. He needs to be able to track and follow the ball or else he's going to get eaten alive in center field at Coors Field. You have to be able to because he'll cover the ground, but he needs to know where to get to. And that's something that can't be understated because those alleyways can spell doom. I mean, again, at Coors Field, if you have the speed, but you can't see the ball and you're not getting there, you're giving up a double. If that ball gets behind you, that's a double. Like I don't care if you have the best arm that we've ever seen in baseball. The average baseball player is going to hit first and going to round that into a double. If that ball is even on a one bounce behind you and you're able to run and kind of take a route where you might be a little behind it, but can get there. So that's something that Benny has to be good. If you are going to be an elite center fielder in Colorado, being good at taking routes is something that's critical. Why is Charlie Blackman not in center field anymore? It's because he couldn't find the ball. He couldn't track down the ball, and he was getting older and not nearly as fast anymore. But that's why he got shifted to right field, where it's all right. It's a lot easier to track things down over there and do that. So that is something we have to watch as well, because you can't be lost in center field anywhere because of how important of a position it is. But Coors Field especially, because a small mistake will lead to a run more often than not, but that also leads to Benny's favor. Maybe you're not putting it out there, but if you're disciplined at the dish and you can get to first on a walk and you're a base stealing threat every time for Ryan Mcmahon, who's up next, just hypothetically speaking. Ryan McMahon, who's up next. That's a good combo. And honestly, the Broncos have, or not the Broncos, the Rockies have always had a ton of.
It's been a big week for the Broncos.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're recording on a pretty important day in Broncos world, but the Rockies have always had speed. It seemed like a lot, or at least in the past, I would say decade or so, maybe, and never been as aggressive as I'd like. If Benny is fast and stuff, I'd love to see the Rockies steal with him more. I'd love the Rockies to steal more in general, with how much speed that they have, the Tapias, the Dazas on the team that they already have. So, but but Benny does give you kind of at least that. He is a guy that loves the game of baseball. When you see he's signing baseball cards with the joke on his name, and he just is having fun, and that's something I actually really value. It seems like him and Charlie Blackman are going to be the perfect mentor for him. Benny Montgomery could go to a guy that's a unique guy who embodied Colorado Rockies baseball in Charlie Blackman, and I think those two can learn a lot from each other, honestly.
Yeah, and something that you can learn a lot about is if you are hungry and you need some sort of energy, some sort of protein, things like that, you need to check out Built Bars. Built Bars are the only protein bars that taste like candy bars, 100% real chocolate. Paul, what's your favorite flavor of Built Bar?
See, here's the best. I love any of them that are like the chocolate, the brownie mixes. I'm a huge chocolate guy, so Built Bars are great because they got that cover of 100% real chocolate, but low in sugar. Because I'm a big candy bar guy. If it's a chocolate bar, I'm trying to snack on that, and Built Bars have been a great way to kind of cut that down.
Yeah, I mean it's peanut butter brownie, my favorite.
Yes,
talk about
that's the one I was
mixes.
thinking of. Yep.
Peanut butter brownie. There's a mint brownie, and then they've got all kind of coconut almond, coconut, cherry barcia. That's one that my wife eats all the time. White chocolate cookies and cream, that kind of stuff. So tons of flavors. They have new ones coming out all the time. They have the rotating ones. They have limited time ones. Go to built.com. Check out the list of everything there. Sign up for the emails. While you're there, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 at built.com. And while you're going online, and I know that you probably have to deal with this quite a bit living somewhere where it snows, but as you need things for your car, whether it's snow chains, whether it's people down here where I am, you need things like Rain-X or whatever for your car, think about getting it from Rock Auto. So your local auto parts store, the chain there is so many makes and models of cars. No possible way they could have all that stuff. You go in there, Paul, and you're like, hey, I need an oil pump. And they say, okay, great. Is your car an LX or an EX? Is it a Sport? All those questions just for them to not have the part. So instead, go to Rock Auto. It's a family-owned business that serves DIYers. They've been doing it for over 20 years. So go to rockauto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car or truck, and write Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, and all the parts your car will ever need are at rockauto.com. And can we talk about the Nolan Arenado trade?
I'd always have to.
Yeah,
it always leads back down to this.
It's just one of those things to me where, and this might be part of the reason Jeff Bridges isn't there anymore. The return on the deal, so it's Arenado and $51 million. And for that, Austin Gomber, Mateo Gil, Elhoris Montero, Tony Losi, and Jake Summers. And the thing that I'm trying to figure out is, was that the best deal that you could get for Nolan Arenado?
I don't think it was. I truly, there's just no possible way. And this is spurned fan me talking. I don't have sources. I don't have any of this stuff, but the Nolan Arenado trade was the peak of Breidich's ego and everything. I think it just got to a point where he was sick of him, where he was sick of Nolan being public and sick of all this stuff that he was saying. And they took the best deal. I find it hard pressed to believe that you could not have gotten. I mean, I'm talking top. If you're trading Nolan Arenado, I want prospect number 1. I want prospect number 10, and I want prospect number 30. Those are the prospects I want. I want them all. and I want money. I want, I want a veteran, and I want this. I mean, there's people to just kind of bring it into a different sport. We're talking Broncos a little bit, the Russell Wilson trade that they just made today. I was listening, I'm here in Seattle, and I was wearing my hat out today in enemy territory, and they're already saying it's not enough for Russell Wilson. And the Broncos sent 4 draft picks, 2 of them in the first round, 3 veteran players, and another draft pick in the later rounds. I mean, if you're trading away your franchise player, you need to rebuild and completely reshape your organization. The Rockies should have gotten so much more. And then when you read the prospects, and you can kind of dive more into this, these aren't even Cardinals' top prospects. This every single and then on top of the heartache of losing, there's a Nolan Arenado jersey right behind these closet doors behind me. The heartbreak of that deal, especially coming off of, we've signed Nolan Arenado for 8 years. We're building a team. The competitive window is here, a game away from winning the National League West, which you have never done before. And then you turn it into this. I'm sorry. I think Austin Gomber is a good arm. I'm sure these prospects can be great. Are any of them going to reach the career of Nolan Arenado? That's to be seen for the young guys, but I highly, highly, highly doubt it. I mean, Nolan Arenado is a once-in-a-generation player. I truly, truly believe that. And the biggest part is this is a Rockies team with this deal. Are the Rockies better right now in 2022 after making this deal without Jon Gray, Trevor Story, Nolan Arenado, and DJ LeMahieu? And the answer to that question is no. They aren't. And then who did they get back for these other 2 veterans? 1 draft pick. You kind of go from the Nolan deal, which sucked, and then you say you're going to do it, and then so you rip everyone's heart out with the Nolan deal. Then you say you're going to do a GM search. You hire the guy that you did the interim, who's right in the organization, who's been here the entire time, and then you don't make any moves to benefit off of off of Trevor Story and Jon Gray going into free agency.
The Story refusal to make a deal there. I mean, and I'm not saying like that Jon Gray is this level, but you look at what Max Scherzer and Trey Turner together in a package deal went for. And it just blows my mind that like Jon Gray and Trevor Story, you just don't do anything.
That's what I was preaching all along the deadline. It was, yes, Jon Gray and a down year Trevor Story aren't exciting you, but you're telling me the Reds, the Angels, the Mariners, all these teams that are right there don't want to make a trade for a combo of Trevor Story and Jon Gray with the potential to bring both of them back the next year on deals? There's no way. There's just no possible way that the best course of action for the Colorado Rockies was to hold on to both of them and then only get the 1 draft pick because Story rejected the qualifying offer. Just like you said with Freddie Freeman, let's be honest here. He hasn't signed anywhere. There's I guess I'm going to say the door is creaked. The door isn't slammed shut on a Story return because guess what? The Rockies are a top 10 team in attendance. And if they really wanted to, they could back up a dump truck of money and offer him a bunch of money because I don't buy into Rockies. I don't buy into the Rockies being small market. I don't buy into the Rockies not being able to afford people. When the owner is worth nearly $1 billion, just built a brand new state-of-the-art apartment, shopping, blah, blah, blah facility right next door, advertising with a giant picture of Nolan Arenado, mind you, and not really and not doing anything in free agency for 2 years. I mean, that's where it all boils down to is the question you have to ask yourself as a Rockies fan is, are we better now? We're not. And the Rockies still won't sit there and officially call it a rebuild because it's really not. The Rockies have done nothing to fully embrace the ideology of what a rebuild is because they don't like the term and they don't want to do that. But in reality, it's like, so what are we doing? So you think the Rockies can compete with the 109 and 108 win Dodgers and Giants with an Arenado, Story, and Grayless lineup? And really, right now, your stars are not an offensive powerhouse in Ryan McMahon, a fantastic player in Ryan McMahon.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
and a good person.
Yes, let me emphasize that I am very glad that Ryan McMahon is the third baseman. He made that deal at least sting a little bit less when you go from Gold Glove defense to should have been Gold Glove defense. Now Rockies fans get to be the angry ones that Nolan's winning. He won that award off of name alone last year.
Off a rep, yeah.
But that's where it all comes down to with the Arenado deal, with the lack of moving Jon Gray and Trevor Story. Those players I mean, those were the most impactful players the Rockies have seen since Matt Holliday and Cargo and Tulo of those competitive days. And those three were the most, and Todd Helton, of course. Sorry, I can't forget my boy. But this was, I mean, back-to-back playoffs. They were wild cards, sure. I don't care anyone says. Wild cards playoffs for this fan.
Playoffs, playoff.
Yeah, they dropped the ball against the Brewers, but instead, I would have loved that Brewer series fires up the Rockies to say, all right, we are going to get someone who can swing. We are going to get we're just going to go out there and yeah, that would mean you'd have to move on from Carlos Gonzalez a little bit earlier. But I love Cargo, but the end of Cargo's career was tough. I mean, there's just so many other routes the Rockies could have taken. And instead we're on this one. And I just don't believe that is. And on to the cherry on top of it all, Jeff Bridich gets to drastically alter the course of Colorado Rockies history and then walks away from the organization with only sending an email in the middle of the pandemic where he doesn't have to face anybody at all. I mean, that Zoom call post Nolan Arenado trade with Bridich and Momford was one of the lowest points of my Rockies fandom. It was just an absolute slap in the face that entire time. And it's hard to not still feel that way. I mean, I want to let it go. And I've been ranting for like multiple minutes on this by now. It always happens to me. I want to let this go, but I can't, because the Rockies did not put themselves in a position to be better right now and have further delayed the ultimate goal of winning a World Series.
Yeah, and that's the issue to me with Bill Schmidt. Is he talks about we are a scout, draft, and develop team. And it's like, there are more than one way to acquire players. You do not have to just draft. You can trade. You can trade for prospects. You can now trade for some draft picks. And so the return you can get like for a Trevor Story trade or a Jon Gray trade is significantly more than the return you get from the one draft pick you get for letting them leave. And it just seems to me a very short-sighted, not maximizing your assets kind of return on investment thing. And if there was a different GM, I might feel differently, but it's something where it feels like it's kind of more of the same.
It's Rocky status quo that we And again, this is if you're not, you don't want to, you maybe you're sitting there, oh, he was the interim of the GM. They wanted Bill Schmidt as the GM this whole time. They just lied to us and said they were going to do a search. They knew they had their guy, and this is a flaw on it doesn't matter if he was interim or not. This is already a misstep of Bill Schmidt's tenure as GM of the Colorado Rockies, handling the 2021 trade deadline. Whether you're interim or not, at that point, it was all pretty well known that we were just waiting until the end of the season for that. But yeah, it's, hey, let's promote a guy from within the organization for an organization that is desperate for an outside look, just someone that can breathe a breath of fresh air. And then what do you hear at the, 3 months into this offseason? Dick Monfort promotes his son. And it's just like, I'm not trying to be that mean about the son, and he has baseball experience, but as Rockies fans, disgruntled ones at best, how are we supposed to sit here and be excited by this? Yeah. How are we supposed to sit here and be excited to trust the people within the organization that have made the moves that they've made in the last 3 years, that back-to-back playoff appearances turned into this? It's that's what's hard. And that's why I was so, when Bridich left, I was just like, this might mean it doesn't have to be an Epstein. It doesn't have to be those guys. I just want someone that has been sitting there for a while watching Rockies baseball saying, what the heck are they doing? Why aren't they just going after this? I have the numbers to show it. Let's try it. I mean, heck, the analytics team was doing laundry 2 seasons ago. Like, that's a real story. Like, this, I digress. I can keep
you're
going,
good.
but at the end of the day, it's just a matter of, I love this baseball team. I care about this baseball team a lot. I'm here on the cam. I got the Avs hoodie on the Broncos hat on. At the end of the day, I care so much more about Rockies baseball. This is my. I mean, I don't know why I've hitched so much of my life to this wagon, but it is, and I just want them to succeed. And it was so close. And there's all this creativity in the league. And the Rockies are the perfect place to be a creative team. Let's be a wacky team. Let's do something crazy. Let's put in an opener DH. I don't know, something crazy like that. Like just to do something wild that I think the Rockies need to do, because you are not going to compete with the payroll of the Dodgers. You're not going to compete with the status quo of Giants baseball. And the Padres, until the Padres actually do anything, they'll spend a lot of money, but they'll fall apart in the middle of the year
and trade all their prospects.
Yeah, and not be able to beat the Rockies in a series that they must to get to the playoffs late in the year. And then the Diamondbacks are in a much worse situation than the Rockies, but they have said rebuild. They have said those words. They have committed to saying that this era of Diamondbacks baseball is going to be bad, and then we are going to hopefully be good again in a little bit. That's draft and develop. What the Rockies have been doing during the middle of the Arenado era up until now is not fully draft and develop. It's not even going for free agents. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, British signed free agents and never made trades. And you look at where the system is now, and it's objectively significantly worse than it was before he left. And you have to figure out something. If folks who listen to my show want to hear more about the Rockies and find you and your stuff, where can they do that?
You can find me at LO Rockies on Twitter. We're also on the YouTubes, Locked On Rockies, if you want the video podcast. I'm at Paul Holden 33. I tweet about more than Rockies stuff. So if you want just that Rockies focused stuff on your timeline, Locked On Rockies is a great place to be, because I do a lot of retweeting. A lot of great people have, they're down at camp. So cool that Todd Helton and Carlos Gonzalez and Clint Hurdle are down there. I'm not as romanticized about Clint Hurdle, the manager, as I am that Carlos Gonzalez and Todd Helton, but did make this Rockies fan heart happy. So we'll be retweeting and showing you all sorts of coverage from people that are out there at spring with the minor leaguers, and we'll be talking Rockies baseball as soon as we still will do it, but as soon as they're there, we're talking more about it, because they're not as bad as other teams, and they showed last year they have a promise, but it's going to be another interesting season in Colorado, that's for sure.
There you go. And for Rockies fans who want more about prospects, about the farm, things like that, I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. My show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm, and you can find Locked On MLB Prospects wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube always. Paul, thanks for the time, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. I'm glad we got someone like you that keeps us up to date, because what's so great about stuff like this is the minors are kind of it's kind of confusing. There's so many names, there's this and that, and it's so great to have someone like yourself that was able to say, hey, let's talk Rockies prospect, and we didn't even get to all of the stuff that you had typed up. So, folks, I'm telling you, Rockies fans checking this out, you got to stay up to date with Locked On MLB Prospects.